And we're back with another episode of the Off the Tools podcast with myself, Wayne, and Andy Jones. How are we doing?
We are good. We are good. Another one with a big, in my opinion, a big topic and something that is massively underutilized in the antiquated trade game of the UK.
Definitely. And that subject is systems. So this will probably be, again, one that we keep coming back to. There's probably going to be lots of discussions around systems, but we have to start somewhere. So I'll give you what I feel systems are. There's two sides to systems, in my opinion. There's the technical side, which is like on the computers and things like that. And then there's like your internal processes, which are sort of mechanical systems. Today, I want to focus on technology, really, more than sort of processes side of it. In this day and age, there is no excuses for not using systems. I'm pretty sure 99.9%. Oh, little cameo from my wife, bringing me a cup of tea. She's on camera. There's no excuses not to be using systems. And the chances are 99.9% of you are using systems in some way, whether it be an email system. I'm guessing every business accepts email. Whether you're sending text messaging, that's a system, right? That's all base level, entry level, obvious things. What I want to talk about is the business systems that start to propel your business, make it professional, starts to build value in the customer's eyes, right? And it makes logical sense to sort of give a little bit of context around where I'm going with this. So in my eyes, there are four fundamental technology systems that everybody should be using if they want to build a business, not just have a job. And that starts with lead and sales management at the beginning, okay? Then job management, then quotation and sales software, and then accounting software at the end. In my eyes, though, those are as important as having a van and having tools. In my eyes, they are, if we looked at this as a traditional shop, they are your shop and your front desk and your till. These are things that no shop would open up without a shop or without a way to take payments or without a way to sell those products. These are the fundamentals. And I think naturally, we won't go too technical today. I think if we focus around job management systems, because it's really the first level that most people will dip their toe into, there's lots of different types of job management systems out there. I've got no notes here, so I'm just working off the cuff, but to name some popular ones, you've got likes of Gas Engineer Software, Tradeify, Commusoft, ServiceMate, SimPro, there's Payaka, there's loads. There's loads more. There's always new ones being developed. But fundamentally, those are probably the main ones that most people will have heard of in some capacity. Those that have followed Off the Tools for a while will know that ServiceMate is our preferred software. That said, a lot of members in the group use alternatives, so we're not a cult for ServiceMate. We are official partners with ServiceMate, so we can help you develop that system. But we also work on all of the other systems and appreciate that every business is slightly different and the needs and the requirements don't always match just one software. So when I'm talking and talking about systems, ServiceMate will be my natural tongue, so to speak, because it's what I've used for coming close to nearly a decade, I would say. Don't know precisely. I think it was 2015, 16, 17 time, somewhere around there. But for me, the importance of having a job management, there's many reasons why you should be using a job management system. At the very base level, it's just keeping hold of customers' data, just making sure that you're logging names, addresses, emails, and then going further from that, you're obviously creating invoices, taking payments, communicating with the customer. And then obviously further on top of that, you start looking at automations and improving that customer journey through reminders, review collection, and the list can go on. There's so many variables to it, but it all starts somewhere, and whether you're using pen and paper at the moment, or whether you are using gas engineer software or whether you're using ServiceMate, the system becomes the beating heart of the business. And if you have aspirations to build a business rather than a job, then having a system at the core of the business is fundamental. Would you agree, Andy?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that, in my opinion, is a necessity in 2025. Because and again, this is something that I've tracked the data on, and I'll give you a bit of a scenario. Let's say you're self-employed, you don't have a system in place to manage service reminders, just as one example. You might have it written down, and that requires you to then manually do it and ring out to that customer. If you miss that for whatever reason, because it isn't automated and done through the job management software, that customer may ring you, they may not ring you, they may forget who you were, they will ring someone else. And for example, if they ring a company that uses the job management software, the likelihood is you will have lost that customer then forever, because they will start to experience not only a new level of value through that software, but that software will work to keep that customer through reminders and things like that, so they won't slip through the net.
Yeah,
that's something I've spoke to a lot of lads about. They'll realize a month later, oh, this customer, I was meant to ring them, and I don't believe you can wait for customers to ring you anymore. When it comes to something like a reminder, a boiler service, I don't think customers, you can expect that of customers anymore. You need to be keeping them in the loop. So that's just one example there, the annual service reminders. And I know a lot of the basic softwares do that, like GES, doesn't have to be ServiceMate. But that was just something that again, from conversations I've had, that most guys' first foray into software is often because of that, isn't it? It's data capture, storage, and then if your business denotes any kind of recurring work, whether it be a CP12 or boiler service from the gas world, or an EICR for a spark, something like that every 5 years. So you need something in place. So that's usually the first dipping of the toe into the water, isn't it?
Yeah, it started with certificates, didn't it? I think that was really like having the digital certificates like stored somewhere rather than writing it down on pads and stuff was really like the birth of job management, wasn't it? It certainly was my first foray into systems back in the day. It was just to get things a bit more organized. And when you work on your own, you can often look at these sort of systems and think, yeah, why do I really need it? I'm quite happy writing it down in a paper diary and filling out the carbon copy pad. And in a way, I can see why. You're in your comfort zone, you're used to it, it's worked up till now. But when you now bring in that new expectation, of the customer 15 years ago was down here, the new expectation of customers is up here. Everyone's busy. Everyone has lots going on in their lives. They expect more. Like Andy mentioned, Amazon like Amazon deliveries on a previous episode. You expect to be kept in the loop, don't you, of what's happening, when things are due, and that expectation just keeps rising. So without a system at the heart, and obviously in my case and your case, in many cases, it's service mate, it's going to be very, very difficult to push on. And those that work for themselves and work just them at the minute, like a one-man band in a van, in the short term, yes, there is a bit of a headache. You know, I'm not going to dress it up. There's a bit of cost involved if you want to get it professionally set up, or there's a time element if you're going to try and set it up yourself. But there's also a day-to-day drag at first because you're doing something that you wasn't used to. So the first month, 2 months is where we see a lot of people sign up month 1, month 2, and then a lot of people drop off from using the system. And 99% of those are one-man bands. And it's because they didn't embrace and ride the learning curve, if that makes sense. Once people get through that first couple of months, they quickly realize it's actually easier to have my calendar on an app on the phone. It's actually easier for me to bang the customer details in and have it stored, because then next time they ring, it's all there. I don't have to write it down again. And it also works on a personal level as well, because once you have a digital calendar, for example, you can your wife can know when you're available and when you're not, and it just adds benefit to everything. But that learning curve can cause it definitely does cause people to stop pursuing that growth, and then they revert back to type and go back to paperwork and then wonder why in 3 years' time nothing's changed. So that's a fundamental thing that you've got to go through it. You know, when you ride a bike, it's very rare that you will just get on a bike and ride it, you know, without falling off. When you're a kid, or whatever age you learn to ride, you know, there is a learning curve. You're gonna smash your knee on the pedal. You're gonna fall off. You're gonna press the wrong brake and go over the handlebars. You know, it doesn't stop you from carrying on and getting through that. But if you have serious aspirations to I'm not even talking about growing into a big business. If you have aspirations to make your life easier, be more professional, charge more, build a better reputation, you know, then a system is a no-brainer. There is really no excuses in today's world not to have one. And what would you say when you first come to me, Andy, those few years ago? You weren't using anything really. I think was you doing certificates on gas engineering, I think? Or was you not even doing that? No. So what was the hardest part of transitioning into a systemized system for you?
I suppose it was see, a mistake I made as well is, even though I'm pretty good at building software now, at the time I wasn't. I was also busy at the time. I made the mistake of trying to build it myself. That was one thing, and that's a bit of a common theme for the lads. They make the mistake of trying to build it themselves and maybe don't look at again, we spoke about pricing in the last one, but well, actually this is going to take me days on end to build. I'd be better just outsourcing it and carrying on working. So that can be a bit off-putting when people again, let's use ServiceMate as an example. They'll have a go at the free trial and go, oh, this is too much, I'm not sure what I'm doing. So that was the thing for me. It was once it was live, because I'd always done it in such an old school way. And again, I used to do a lot of emergency call outs. So I used to have a little paper pad, and all that I could do was signature on arrival, brief of the job, and then a signature when I was done. And that was easier, and to just grab that and do that. It was only once we started using ServiceMate where actually that can be done all automated now. So it knows whether it's you or one of your engineers, it knows when they've arrived on site, for example. You can do a job report with pictures and what you've done. And then obviously you can, it tells you the log out time as well. So just to lean into the pricing side of things a bit, and we spoke about bringing value. a system has to be there for you to be able to increase your pricing. It has to be done. It's part of the natural evolution of the business. And it can't be just viewed as a benefit to the business itself. And of course it is. That's kind of its primary function, really. However, it also as a byproduct of that, it brings more value to the customer. Again, you use the Amazon Prime analogy that I mentioned, because it keeps the customers in the loop, things like that. So a really good conversation we've had with some of the lads in Alliance when they started using it is some of them maybe weren't charging for a fault find, whether it's, again, Spark or Gas Engineer, whatever. They'd go out and not charge for a fault find because they struggled to see how they could construct that. Or maybe they were only charging a little bit because it's not took them that long, rather than being strict with their hourly rate. With something like a job management software, on top of all the stuff about keeping them in the loop, that job report then becomes the weight behind something like a fault find, because everything then becomes itemized within it, stored. It protects the business, and the customer gets a copy. So that awkward conversation that everyone's probably had at some point of, well, what am I actually paying for? All you're doing is telling me what's wrong with it. So you're paying for a fault find diagnostics visit that includes a digital job report, and here it is, kind of thing. So that's one thing that has been a common conversation within the Alliance when it started with, oh, how can I increase my prices? It's, let's get your job management software up to speed, and then you use that as part of the value package, let's call it, when you bring to the customer. So yeah, I think there's a lot of viewing of it. Well, I don't want to, like, again, you spoke about investment. A very common conversation on the online forums is, well, I'm not paying that much for that, because all it's then viewed as is like a diary thing, or all it is a glorified diary. Why would I spend, £100 a month or whatever it is on that? But it's just so much more, isn't it? And that's the thing that gets missed out.
It shouldn't. It's not a cost. It is an investment, because it will generate you money, either directly or indirectly. It'll either generate you a better reputation, it will generate you extra time because you're now organized, but it can also be used to get work and bring money in directly. And then when you then start to factor in that if you're going to take on someone to answer your phones, for example, or something like that, it's then a no-brainer. It's not even negotiable at that point, is it? Because there has to be that centralized hub to the system. Have you used any other job management systems, or was ServiceMate your sort of like first proper one, and you've sort of just stuck with that since?
Yeah, again, when I built the heating business, as you said, it was from an absolute ground zero point. And I was that. So much of the things that we've spoke about, I was virtually a full-time subcontractor, save the 15, 16 customers that I'd done for myself that were probably local customers. And I was still using paper for CP12s. I was still using a paper diary. I was still writing bits down. I was still, keeping my receipts in a bag and dropping them off for the accountant at the end of the year in a big scruffy bag. So I had absolutely nothing. So that was my first foray. I'd seen some of lads that I knew who'd used Gas Engineer software, and my best mate uses his business uses Tradify, but it was only when you give me a demo on ServiceMate, I was like, yeah, this is the shit. Like, and that seems to be the consensus. And the thing with softwares as well is, as the popularity grows and more people use the software and then pay the subscription, providing the company's ran well, which ServiceMate is, then that fuels the growth, the upgrade, let's call it, of the software itself. And ServiceMate gets progressively better and better each year as it does its upgrades. And it's, for me, it is the best piece of software. I'll slightly vary it and say there isn't one perfect piece of software.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some stuff in CommuSoft that ServiceMate doesn't have, but if you had to choose one that was the market leader for a domestic business, where you've not got more than 30 members of staff, ServiceMate is the go-to. And that applies whether it's just you on your own. We've got lots of lads in the group, or it's just them on their own, isn't it? Use ServiceMate and they're like, fuck, like, if I'd have had this years ago, it's always that same thing. Oh, I wish I got this years ago. My business would be so much further along. You'd have more reviews, you'd have better retention, you wouldn't have lost many customers and things like that. So yeah, it's always, in my opinion, the first step forward after coaching, of course, is to get a job management software.
Yeah. And you mentioned obviously coaching there, but that's very important part of a system as well, is having the right people around you that can help you with it, help you understand how to use it, what to use it for, which again, a little shameless plug here for Alliance, but that is part of what we do at Alliance, isn't it? It's that support network, that level of expertise that is not just me and you, it's the other lads in the group that are seasoned business owners now, and all progressing, all at different levels, all from different walks of life. It all plays into the ecosystem, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was just about to lead into that. That's the beauty of it, is when the majority of the group is using a job management software, using ServiceMate. I think everyone in the group is using a job management software. But then you can lean on the rest of the group then, because it becomes a bit of a hive mind, because it's ever evolving. And we've got another scheduled podcast to talk about AI. And most of the job management softwares have AI built into them now in varying degrees. So that's, again, conversations to be had with the other business owners within Alliance, of how can I leverage this the best. But yeah, there's just so many, you hit the nail on the head, really, is that it should never be viewed as a cost to the business. I think, again, a lot of it's the sole trader kind of mindset lads who see it as a cost rather than seeing it as a way to elevate the business in multiple ways. And as a result, you can then increase your pricing because you've elevated your business. And it then goes far beyond like cost serving. But I don't know, and we spoke about this on the long podcast. If you pay £100 a month for job management software, and even at a very absolute base level, it frees up enough time in your month to do 2 further jobs and generate more than it costs you, that in its very simplistic baseline form makes it worth it. It's impossible for it to only be bring that little amount of value, in my opinion. But that was like a really simple analogy that we used, isn't it, to say why it's foolish not to use one. And it's usually just lack of knowledge about them, or a stubbornness from, like you raised in another episode of, you learn from an old guy, kind of thing. Who then, it's like, well, the guy I did my apprenticeship with didn't do it, and he was doing all right. But time, like technology, is moving fast, but more importantly, customer requirements is moving faster. The trade industries themselves, or in terms of actually doing the work, hasn't really changed, has it? You know what I mean? The combi boiler is still very similar to the one that it was 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. Fuse boards have become a bit safer, but they haven't changed that much. The way you throw plaster on a wall, the way you paint and decorate a house, it's very, very slow moving in that realm of things. But the other side of stuff, and what customers demand from the other side of the stuff, is changing rapidly. And again, to echo the pricing conversation, if you're not pushing forward and putting things in place that allow you to push your pricing not just in line with inflation, but then above and beyond, then you're losing money year on year. So that investment into the software, that a lot of guys think, well, I don't want to do that, it's going to cost me money. To actually know, I would argue you have to to implement it. Otherwise, the business is going to slip further and further down in terms of its profit margins.
Yeah. And also, one thing that I've noticed massively is so when I first started using systems, I was one of the forerunners. You know, there weren't many people in my area doing it. But over the last decade, obviously, more and more people are learning. They're improving, and the base level of service is going up. So if you're not improving, you're not just staying still. You're actually falling further behind everybody else in your area. So even from that perspective, you know, it's sort of get on the train or get left behind, isn't it? Because every year that passes, especially, we're not going to touch AI today because that warrants its whole discussion. But, you know, you factor in AI, you know, the speed that's changing everything at, it's only getting faster. Everything is getting faster. So the longer you procrastinate and sit on your hands and don't take any action, the harder it's going to be for you to catch up. You know, just simple things, right? So a review collection system, right? Yes, you might have all good intentions to send out a review link, right, to every customer on every job that you do. Chances are you're busy, you forget, you go, oh, I'll do it at the end of the week. Then the end of the week comes and you don't do it. Then a month passes by and you realize, oh, I haven't done it for a month. So you think, oh, it's too late to send it to these guys, so I'm going to start again today. And you might send it a few times, you get a few reviews, then you get busy again, you forgetful, you forget about it, right? You're going to get what, 20, 30 reviews over the course of a couple of years, probably like that. But then you're competing against guys like me, Andy, and other Off the Tools Alliance members that are sending out multiple review requests on every job, completely hands-free. It's not taking us any time. It's all built in to the systems that we have built. So that is why I sit here today with over 1,500 reviews. You imagine, right? You imagine the poor 25-year-old lad that's just give up his job and he's going self-employed and he's trying to do it the old school way because that's all he knows. And he's trying to compete with my company in my town when I've got such a vast amount of reviews. And Andy, what are you at? You're like well over 1,000 now, aren't you, across all the platforms and that?
Shy of 1,000 now again. So and that's not from the start of the business. That was from the start of getting software. So we've had software now for about, so we properly kicked off with the software last summer. So we've probably achieved 800 reviews in 18 months. Yeah.
So you imagine that competitor, if they had started a year ago to try and keep up with Andy, you know, then they would be like, now it's a mountain, isn't it? It's not just a little hill. They're not a little bit behind. Just in that short amount of time, they're now a marathon away from catching Andy, and that is just compounding every single day. And that's just one example. Review collection. Let's look at reminders. You know, we touched on reminders earlier. Every single boiler service that happens in mine, Andy's, and other Alliance members' businesses, they are getting reminders every single year after that job. So we're not leaving it to chance. So we're not only are we building our reputation with the review collection side of things, we're actually driving revenue and customer retention and increasing that lifetime value of our clients every single year. And what's even better is we're not doing it. As in, once it's built, apart from the odd tweak here or there, you might want to change a bit of a wording in one of the messages that go out or something. My system that runs my business pretty much hasn't been touched, apart from the odd spelling mistake found or something like that, you know, in nearly 6 years. So 6 years ago, I invested some time and money to build something that is still to this day serving me and doing jobs for me and helping me build my business when I don't have to do anything for that to happen. And that's just two very basic examples of how job management can help. Then we start factoring in invoicing, right? If you're invoicing, guess what? We're going to remind that customer that they haven't paid, so you're going to get your money quicker, more efficiently, and without any hassle. Then you factor in sending out quotes. You can send quotes out through the software. Obviously, we use Quotient, which is another discussion point. But ServiceMate and other job managements can do basic quoting. So now you've got solid records. You're chasing up these quotes on autopilot. All of this quickly just eliminates that little bit of a learning curve at the beginning and that little bit of cost that it might cost you. And it just becomes the beating heart of the business, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It absolutely blows away the cost that it is. The cost of the software absolutely blows it away. It's not even
I've
close.
always said if ServiceMate doubled their price tomorrow, maybe I shouldn't say this publicly. I wouldn't even blink at paying, because the value is just there 100x. It's in essence, I see it as an infinite return on it.
Yeah, like I say, I like how you mentioned again about it's usually once it's set up, and that is the daunting part of it. It's when you set up at the beginning, the setup costs, and then you getting to use it yourself can be quite daunting. But once it's in and it's dialed in, then you just let it run, don't you? Like you say, you can make the little tweaks if you want to, change little things as you see fit. But once it's done, and you use it, and it gathers the data, and you're all right.
Yeah. And the level of professionalism that it garners, if that's the right word, I'll go a little so. In business, there's something called a customer journey, okay, and that is in essence the route that customer takes from sort of first contact, well, even before that, but let's just start at first contact through to job completing, and then looking after that customer into the future. And to show you what is sort of possible, I'm just going to quickly describe the basic service customer journey that my customer will go through. If they book, let's choose a boiler breakdown, right? So let's say they ring my office or they send an inquiry through to my office today. They're going to be obviously greeted, introduced to the company, customer details taken. So now, first of all, we've got some valuable data. We've got their name, address, email, phone number, and obviously the problem that they're experiencing. How we've collected that data could be through an online form, could be through a phone call, could be through a voicemail. It's irrelevant. In essence, that's the start of the basic customer journey. We then book that job in to the electronic diary that's built into the system. Okay, so the office lady can clearly see who's available when. We then book that job in. As that job is booked in, a booking confirmation is sent out to the customer via text and email. Okay, so stage one, they're now already being confirmed. So they've had it confirmed on the phone, but they now have a digital copy that shows that the appointment's booked, and that is when someone's going to turn up. Then they get a reminder. Okay, so a couple of days before or 24 hours before, I can't remember its specifics, they will get another text and email that just says, don't forget, you've got an upcoming appointment with us at this time. So it limits people forgetting, going to work, not communicating and letting us know that they don't need us anymore, etc., etc. Then the next stage to that is they will then, when the engineer, whether it's myself, whether it's one of my staff, are actually going to start to travel to that job, they get another notification that tells the customer we are 27 minutes away, or whatever it might be. Then obviously the service, you deliver the service that you're there for. Sorry, what I've also forgotten there is they also get a confirmation of the costings go out via a text message and an email as well. So whatever's been discussed on the phone with regards to our call out fees in this example of a breakdown are emailed and text. So again, we're eliminating any ambiguous, the office never told us there was a cost or whatever. Anyway, back to the job. We do the job, etc. Let's say it's just a low pressure. We top the pressure up, blah, blah, blah. We do the job. We then generate a customized job report for the job at hand. So we take a couple of photos, we write a description, that generates a beautiful looking PDF. Beautiful is probably an extreme word. A nice looking professional PDF is probably more realistic. Kind of a bit glamorous there with beautiful. That is then emailed over to the customer alongside the invoice, which the invoice has the ability to pay online, or you can even take payment via your phone, like a card terminal. They can tap it. If it's over £100, they can just enter their PIN and make a payment. So at this stage, everything that I've just done, there has been very minimal input. All that's been done is the job has been booked in. All of the rest of that, and obviously we've done the breakdown, so they're the two physical elements that have happened. Everything else has happened on autopilot. Then let's say that they don't pay for whatever reason. Let's just say like the engineer didn't have time to take payment. If they don't pay, they will then get a series of reminders via text and email to make payment. Obviously, once they pay, that reminder stops. They'll also, on the back end of this customer journey, they will also get a couple of texts and a couple of emails to encourage them to reach out if there's a problem and ultimately leave us a review. And then we also have one later on in the journey that asks them if they know any friends or family that need work to point them in our direction. So that there, right? If you're not doing half of that, look how far behind you are compared to someone like me. And that's just a very basic one. You know, there's elements following on for this for future marketing and future works and et cetera, which is probably a whole nother episode. But I just wanted to showcase what a system can do. On top of all of that, we now have all of that data in the system. So anywhere in the world, I can log in and I can see Mrs. Jones's boiler, using Andy's mum's name here, Mrs. Jones's boiler. I can see who did what, when, what communications have gone out, what's been paid, what's not been paid. If they reply, I'll get any communications come back in, and it just collates it all. And on top of that, obviously, anyone in the office can see. So if I'm not available, they can look and go, oh, we were there 2 weeks ago. I wonder if it's linked to that job that this phone call is about, et cetera, et cetera. Just makes things so much better, doesn't it, Andy? So yeah, so that's just a very basic customer journey for a boiler breakdown. Might scare a lot of you, but once that is set up, whether you do it yourself or whether you come through a partner like myself and Andy, it's set up. I haven't had to rebuild this. I haven't had to touch this in years and years. So it just works on autopilot, which is what we all want, you know?
I think one thing as well, I just want to add in there as well for the lads that maybe either plan to have other lads out on the road or already have, and they're sort of managing them manually, like all that data that you were saying, it's visible from your admin person or for yourself. But it also, again, by definition, is a job management software to manage the jobs that your team is working on. Yeah. So you then have a diary that can be populated. So one thing that it becomes extremely valuable too, when you're trying to get the most amount of either work completed or maximum revenue per day per engineer, the way it can be viewed from the person managing the diary, again, whether it's yourself or someone in the office, it's laid out in a really good way where they can say, well, actually, you know, he's a bit stuck on that job, or we've had something else come in. Let's swap them round. We'll move that to that guy, that to that guy, and that to that guy. That would become too much work to do logistically if you wasn't using the job management software. Yeah. That's something that when I look at it now for the team, I think like how this would be virtually impossible to do without this job management software.
Yeah, I agree.
If anyone's got a couple of lads out on the road and they're thinking, shit, this is hard work, I don't think I want to grow the team anymore, maybe it's because you've not got a job management software.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point there. And what worked 10 years ago might not work today. You know, you might need to just change some things. If you've been on the same software for a long time, it might just be that you need a bit of something new and something that does something a little bit different, because ultimately not all systems will suit all businesses. So you do have to find one that fits for what you want and has the features available. But there are plenty out there. Unless you've got the time, the money, and the inclination to build a complete from the ground up software to make it exactly perfect for your business, even then you're never going to reach perfection. Then using one of these off-the-shelf ones that have the ability to customize. Yeah. So some softwares, like gas engineer software, like Tradify, they're very rigid. You know, there's not much adaptations that you can do. Whereas things like ServiceMate, SimPros, and others, you can adapt it and build it, which is why there's partners like us that to manipulate the core software into more of a bespoke version for you, which is again another reason why we recommend ServiceMate so highly, because we can integrate with the likes of Sales Lion, which is the lead and marketing software, Quotient, and obviously it links with accounting softwares like Xero, QuickBooks, etc.
Yeah, later down the line as well, we're going to run a bit of a webinar, aren't we, on software. So we will just showcase some of the software and just show you, give you a more visual idea, because obviously we can talk about it all day, but we're used to seeing it and we can picture it in our head. Yeah. I think some of the guys listening probably thinking, oh, what's all that about? Can I see it? And we do get a lot of requests to see it in action or see it live, so to speak. So we will be doing a webinar and talking about and showcasing the big four that we spoke about before, which is sales and marketing, job management, quoting, and then accounting softwares. I would say the one accounting software wise is the one that maybe some guys might have, even if they're not using it. So a lot of accountants will tell you, you need this software, even though you've not played with it. So that could be useful for them to look at. But the other three are generally very visual, and like I say, they can be customized and built out. So yeah, stay tuned for that, or keep your eye open rather for that. We will get dates out on that across a few platforms. So if you're not following already, just give us a follow and you'll be updated on that, and you can see it working in real time in a real business and exactly just what it's capable of.
Exactly that, yeah. And if you've got any specific questions or anything around systems, please just drop us a message on our emails, Wayne or Andy at offthetools.co.uk, or better still, post it in the Off the Tools Facebook group, which is a thriving community full of people all over the country at all different levels that is completely free. So make sure you go and join that. Anything else you want to add, Andy?
Nope. I think there's only so much to put into one, but yeah.
See you on the next one, guys.